Once upon a time, there was a beautiful woman named Timmy, known for her smile and kindness. Her nickname was Smile, as the villagers affectionately called her. She was a very cheerful person who always made sure that the people around her were happy. She had a small business where she wove beautiful baskets and sold them at the MOA market. These baskets were used for interior decoration, jewellery organisers, and more. She was also famous for her beautiful baskets known throughout her village and neighbouring villages, who came to do business in MOA. On the day of her wedding, all her customers came to celebrate with her. They were happy, and there was plenty of food to eat. It was the people's wedding, and it was this way because of her commercial nature that had made her so popular, and also because of her beautiful smile. Consequently, they came to celebrate. They came to celebrate with her in large numbers. Her husband, Kumi, was a businessman who always travelled for work. He was a very talented, humble man, and also a kind and passionate gentleman who always stood up for the truth. He was a good man, however, a heavy sorrow weighed on his heart. She was infertile, unable to bear children. She longed to hold her own children. She desired to be called mother, but it did not happen. Gradually, the very cheerful and kind Timmy began to change. She became very aggressive and cried all day. She became a shadow of herself. Soon she stopped weaving and always stayed at home, crying. People stopped visiting her, sales dwindled, and the joyful charm was no longer there because she had completely changed. She then stopped the weaving business and stayed at home, crying. Her husband encouraged her to be patient, but she didn't want to because she was so desperate to have a child. Soon she became the subject of gossip. She became the subject of village conversation because it had already been 5 years with no sign of pregnancy or even a miscarriage. She went everywhere people recommended. Sometimes she went to prayer houses where they told her to bring money and that they would fast and pray for her, and then she would become pregnant. But after another year, there was still no sign of pregnancy. Sometimes she was taken to witch doctors who told her to bring goats, cowries, and all sorts of objects, but nothing worked. Everyone in the village gossiped about her. It had been 8 years, and there was still no sign of pregnancy. She became increasingly frustrated. People who were once her friends became her worst nightmare, regularly mocking her. They called her all sorts of names. Some said she had given her children to her spiritual husband. Others said she was a witch who had given her uterus for rituals, which was why she made so much money with her weaving business. All sorts of rumours circulated about her. Horrible things were said about Timmy. She continued to cry day and night, but her husband continued to console her, saying, "I understand what you are going through, but be patient with God. He will give us children. I am not complaining, so forget anyone who talks to you or disrespects you. Am I not your husband? Are they your husband? It is not you they mock. It is not you they insult. You barely go out, only attending to your commercial activities without anyone treating you as infertile. But not me. Everywhere I go, someone is waiting to remind me that I am responsible for our inability to have children, or that I am a barren woman who only knows how to spend her brother's money. Please leave me alone." She continued to cry, so frustrated and desperately in need of a child. She lost focus, stopped believing, and lost her faith in God. She just wanted any means as long as it would work for her, but her husband always told her that God's timing is the best and she should be patient. She said, "If God wanted me to have a child, he had 8 years to prove it. I am done hoping and believing. Somehow, I will help myself." One day, her neighbour Zima talked to her about a prophet who had visions. She said he was a very powerful man and could help her. He had helped many women, and she knew he would help Timmy. Zima assured her that this would be the last place she would need to go, so Timmy agreed. Zima couldn't sleep all that night, thinking about what she had told Timmy. She was excited and scared at the same time, but She had decided to go with Zima or anyone else as long as it would work. She wondered and questioned what this man Zima had talked about would look like, if it would work, as Zima had said, or not. So many thoughts in her head, she did not tell her husband what she had discussed with Zima because she knew he would never approve of her going with Zima. He never supported the places she went, but she went anyway without his knowledge. Without her husband's consent, on a fateful Saturday morning at 6 a.m., Zima and Ankh were at Badi's place. She told him what she was seeking, and she was surprised when he said, "Don't worry, this week you will be pregnant, I assure you. I have helped many women like you, and yours will be no different. Do not be afraid. Your days of crying are over. You will carry your own child in your arms 9 months from now." Ankh and Zima looked at each other and smiled. Ankh was happy for her, and Zima felt that this would be the last place she would need to go to have a child. She knew deep in her heart that this would be the last, and she would have a child after this. But you must be aware of what this involves, your duties and your prohibitions. Whatever it is, I'm ready. I'm ready to take the risk. I've had enough of the mockery, the shame, the reproaches, and all the names people call me. Okay then. Every December, you will sacrifice a goat, a dove, 5 tubers of yam, 5 bottles of Fanta, palm oil, 10 cowries, and a pack of biscuits. That's all for the whole year. It's very little, and I can afford it on a weekly basis. Be quiet, he said. You must be prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. Are you ready? Yes, she agreed fearfully. Now listen, he said. You will have a son, but you must never lay your hands on him or scold him, no matter what he does. He is a king and must be treated as such. No matter what he does, let him do it. Whoever touches him will die. I said he is a king. She was confused and wondered what kind of king he was talking about. Lost in her thoughts, Badi shouted, "Do you understand?" "Yes, I understand. You'd better understand because your life and the lives of all those around you depend on it. Okay, Shbadi." She was a little scared but determined to do whatever it took to have a child. So she was ready to take the risk, despite being warned of the dangers ahead. Thus, Badi took her to the river, told her to take off her clothes, made several incantations, and sacrificed a goat and other objects they had brought for the sacrifice. Everything was said and done, and they returned home. That same week, Timmy became pregnant. She was very happy and began to be joyful again. Her husband was surprised by the sudden change. She glowed like a beacon. She told her husband that she was pregnant, and he was so happy that he bought her many gifts. Soon the news of her pregnancy spread throughout the village. Some came to see her for themselves, others came to mock her, but they found a beautiful woman radiating the beauty of early pregnancy. She started weaving again, and those who had distanced themselves from her came back. She had more customers now than ever, and sales multiplied. Business was booming, and everything seemed perfect. 9 months later, she gave birth to a cute little prince. No one knew the source of the miraculous baby except Badi and herself. It was a secret between them. Only the two of them knew. People came with gifts to welcome the newborn. He was a very cute little prince, and his parents named him Zida, which means, I have a child now. Everyone who saw him loved him. Little did they know that trouble was just beginning. He cried all night, keeping his parents awake, and as soon as dawn broke, he would sleep. This continued for the first 7 months after his birth. Then it stopped. Timmy thought it was over, but she didn't know it was just beginning. After 5 years, Zida would say strange things that made you wonder where he got them from or who had taught him. Sometimes he called elderly people by name, but his mother would ask them to excuse him, saying he was just a child and had probably heard someone say it. One day, a neighbour whipped him because he had insulted her. That same night, she slept and did not wake up. No one could say what had killed her, But Ank and Timmy knew what had happened. Zida called Timmy by her name. When her husband complained, she would say, "He is just a child." One night, Gomi woke his wife in the middle of the night and said, "I don't like the way you are raising this boy. You are spoiling him. I know you had a hard time before he came, but please, let's raise this child in the fear of God so he won't become a burden to us tomorrow." "Okay, I understand. Can I go back to sleep now?" she asked. That same night, Gomi had a vision where a strange woman appeared to him and gave him a warning about Zid. "Zid may be your son, but he is a king. He is our king. He is not a child. Be careful how you speak to him. You must never lay your hands on him or scold him. You risk your life if you don't listen. Be warned." He woke up very scared and told his wife about the strange encounter he had had. She pretended to be surprised even though she knew exactly what he had encountered. He couldn't even look at Zid, let alone touch him. He wondered what kind of king he was and what the statement, "He is not a child," meant. He was truly disturbed. About 5 people had died in the community because they had scolded Zid. A woman and her son died because Zid had taken the son's ball and the mother went to retrieve it and scolded him. That night they went to sleep and didn't wake up. Everyone was afraid of him. He was a very mysterious and mischievous child who caused problems wherever he went. Everyone in the village warned their children not to approach Timmy or her son. Komi was a very busy man who was not always around. He would go on business trips one after another. Year after year, after the encounter he had with the strange woman in his vision, he became so scared that he travelled for business and stayed away for months. He was afraid of the boy. He suspected the deaths. They all happened when they had problems with him, and surprisingly, they all died in the same way. He was thinking and pondering, making the connection between the relationship with the deaths and Zid. He was convinced that something was wrong with Zid, something off, and he believed that his wife was aware of it, which is why she had never laid a hand on him nor scolded him. So he stayed at his workplace while sending a monthly subsistence allowance for them, but he made sure to talk to his wife every day to know how they were doing. Timmy was starting to get tired of Zid's behaviour, but there was nothing she could do to change him. She was forbidden from taking him anywhere, including to church. So she thought, regretting her actions and wanting to be patient. But it was too late. There was nothing more she could do. She had to face the troubles she had brought upon herself. The joy of motherhood had turned into sorrow for her. Every time Zid saw her crying, he laughed at her, making her cry even more. One day, Komi sent money to Timmy and told her that he was coming home that weekend with some business partners, and they needed her to prepare something good for them because they would have a meeting at their house and the visitors would spend the night there. They had talked Thursday night, and she was so happy that her husband was coming home after 5 months. But Zid was not happy that his father was coming back. Timmy rushed to the market Friday morning to buy everything she needed to prepare the meal for her husband and his business partners, as they were already on the 9th bus and would arrive at her house very early on Saturday morning. She came back, prepared the meal, and cleaned the house after Zid had. She told him to take care of the house because she wanted to hurry to the evening market to sell some of her baskets. By the time she returned, Zid had spilled the pot of food she had prepared on the floor. She was so angry. "Do you know how much this food cost? Do you know how long it took me to prepare it? Your father is already on his way and will be here with his business partners who fast tomorrow morning. How do you expect me to prepare another meal for them tonight? I won't forgive you this time." "Enough of your nonsense," she said, unable to tolerate his evil actions any longer. She laid him on the ground and whipped him so hard on his buttocks. For the first time in his life, he cried and screamed. Their neighbours rushed to her house upon hearing the noise. They were all surprised that she could beat him, and no one stopped her. They said, "Go ahead and beat him. He needs it." So she beat him to her satisfaction that night. That same night, those people came. I knew this day would come, but I didn't know it would be so sudden. At least I'll be rid of this horror show you call a child. I'm ready to die. Do your worst. Enough. I'm glad I whipped him so hard for my satisfaction once, and he cried, he screamed. He cried so much we asked him what he wanted to do with her, and he asked his life. The husband arrived that morning and found his wife and son dead. He wept bitterly. I must know what happened to my wife and son. I won't bury them until I find out what happened, he said. He sent a messenger to Uncle, who told him everything she knew. The news spread throughout the village. They buried Timmy and her son, Zid. Comey stayed in town for months. He had lost all hope. He had lost everything. He sold everything he had and left. Several decades later, a tree grew over the graves of Timmy and Zid. It was a beautiful tree. He called it the Father of the Forest. Young girls who wanted a child went to this place to ask for blessings. Everything remained like that. No one remembered what had happened that night. Sometimes the hardest path, that of patience and perseverance, is the one that leads to the best reward. Let's learn from Timmy and Zid to cultivate patience, to remain faithful to our beliefs, and not to give in to social pressure or immediate desires. Let's not forget that every action has consequences, and sometimes waiting for the right moment is key to achieving our deepest goals. If this story has touched you, feel free to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring and informative content. And please let us know in the comments from which country you are watching this video. Your feedback is valuable to us and helps us create content that resonates with you. Thank you for watching.